wow, she's fighting. She's fighting for her life.
911 emergency. Karen's dead.
A savage murder.
It's something I'd never seen before, except maybe in a movie. It was eerie.
A crime of passion, crime of rage, and very improvised.
A dark mystery with multiple suspects.
He has a criminal history.
Is he lying? And if he is, why is he lying?
He was married, and she was going to say something to his wife. Could there be a possible motive there?
The truth will be revealed.
Time is telling us you were the last person to see her.
Who says that if they're innocent? Would you? No, I wouldn't.
Every day in North America, dozens of people are murdered. The key to solving the toughest of these homicides lies in the final 24 hours of the victim's life. To crack the case, detectives must reconstruct that critical timeline. The minutes and hours containing evidence that can help unlock the mystery and catch the killer. Oldsmar, Florida, a small southern town known as a great place to raise a family.
Oldsmar is a quiet community, about 15,000 residents. Some would describe it as a bedroom community.
Pretty much everybody knows everybody. It's kind of one of those areas where people talk to each other, everybody's friendly. There's not a lot of activity that you would consider to be suspicious.
Typically, in Oldsmar, you would deal with some property-type crimes.
Maybe burglaries, maybe some car thefts, but it's certainly not a hot spot where you expect there to be much violence.
Except on a pleasant Saturday morning, the quaint stability of Oldsmar is rocked by horror.
911 emergency.
Please come. And the police.
What's going on there, sir?
Karen's dead.
Is that your wife?
No, it's my girlfriend.
It's what?
My girlfriend. I just came over here and I found her. Please hurry. Please.
Is this suspicious, sir?
I would say so, yeah. I haven't touched anything. I opened the door and she's in the kitchen. And there's blood everywhere.
Tim Permentor was at his girlfriend's. He had found her dead in the house, and she was on the ground in a pool of blood.
The victim is 39-year-old Karen Pinnell, an airline customer service representative.
Karen was a very fun-loving person. She was always smiling, always laughing. But she wasn't afraid to speak her mind. She loved living in Florida. She loved the beach. She liked to fish. She, kind of had a set of friends that she spent most of her time with. So she was somebody that people enjoyed being around.
Veteran Detective Larry Nelvin and forensic science specialist Anna Cox are tasked with solving Karen's horrific murder. They start by surveying the outside of Karen's home.
There's a bird bath that was knocked over in the yard. There was a phone box that was open. The sliding glass door was open, and there was a safety pin from the sliding door was laying right on the carpet. It makes you think, was there a burglary? As you walk in the residence, you can see into the kitchen area. That is where Karen's body was. There were several sharp force injury wounds to her body and defensive wounds on her hands and arms, indicative of defense wounds, which when somebody is being stabbed or attacked with a knife, the common reaction that anybody is going to do is to defend yourself, to put your hands up, to try to stop it, to block it.
Karen sustained 16 stab wounds to her neck, chest, and heart, leading detectives to question whether her murder was staged to look like a burglary.
This is obviously a personal attack, somebody that was close to Karen. If this was a burglary gone bad, people typically do what they need to do to get away.
Whenever you see excessive violence at a crime scene, in particular stab wounds, 12 or more, if not sexual, is actually very personal. So you have a crime of passion, crime of rage, and very improvised.
This was over and over, multiple stab wounds to her. So this was somebody that was extremely upset, not somebody that got caught off guard and was startled. This was somebody that wanted Karen dead, and they made sure that they killed her.
To solve Karen's murder, Detective Nelvin and forensic specialist Cox will have to reconstruct the final 24 hours of Karen's life.
Timeline's extremely crucial. It allows us to put the victim in certain places at certain times. It allows us to put people of interest in certain places at certain times. So it's almost like it builds this diagram for you, and it puts this puzzle together.
Their investigation starts with analyzing the crime scene.
There is blood spatter on the cabinets. There's blood spatter on the door. And then I look closer at the door and I see these 3 letters that are just beautifully written in blood, ROC. They're all capitalized. They are all the same height and width, and they're located several inches off of the floor. And I think the most interesting thing about them is that they are completely uninterrupted. So it is almost as though somebody very deliberately and methodically wrote these letters.
Your first thought is this our murder suspect? Did Karen write ROC on the wall so we would find it and know who had done this to her?
If she wrote it, I logically am thinking she had to write it with her fingers. So I began to look at her hands, and I noticed her left fingers did not have blood on the tips, but on her right hand, there's a little bit of blood on the tips of her fingers.
It's something I'd never seen before, except maybe in a movie or TV show. Whether it was really Karen writing that or not, or it was staged, it was eerie, either way, because clearly somebody was either trying to tell us that ROC did it or trying to blame ROC for something he didn't do.
As investigators search the crime scene, they uncover an important piece of physical evidence.
Also inside of Karen's residence is a pizza box, missing 3 pieces of pizza. There's a receipt which shows it was delivered at around 8:48 to her residence on Friday night. So that's a good indication that Karen was still alive at 8:48 when that pizza was delivered.
With the pizza receipt, detectives have an important anchor on their timeline and theorize that Karen was murdered sometime between 8:48 p.m. Friday and 10:30 the following morning.
So at this point, we know that Karen had pizza delivered to her residence on Friday at 8:48, and we know that Tim Permentor called 911 at 10:30 in the morning on Saturday when he discovered her body inside her residence.
Tim's involvement up to this point makes him the first person detectives want to talk to.
Tim reports this crime. He has to be considered a person of interest, A, because of the relationship. Intimacy is a risk factor for violence, period. So the fact that they're having a relationship makes him a suspect, but then added to that, he's also calling to report the crime. So that could also be viewed then as suspicious as well.
Detectives bring Tim into the sheriff's office for questioning.
He appeared to be upset, visibly emotional, and he was very cooperative and said he would, do whatever he could to help us figure out who had done this to Karen. Tim tells us that he met Karen about 3 months prior. He worked at a local car dealership, and then he actually leased her a vehicle. He said there was a connection there, and they became involved in a romantic relationship. He described their relationship as good. They were talking about maybe getting engaged. They were looking at some real estate to maybe find a place to live together.
Detectives start to dig into Tim's timeline.
Tim tells us that he went over to her house on Friday night at 7. He was delivering her this kitty calendar. And while he was there, she, at that point in time, makes a phone call to call her dad for his birthday. He left at 7:30 and went back to his apartment in Clearwater, where he has a roommate named George, and they played some video games. And at that point, George left to go to his girlfriend's up in Pasco County. And Tim told us that George's girlfriend, Vicky, actually told him to invite Tim to come up if he wanted to. Initially, Tim wasn't going to go, but he decided to go a short time later, around 9:30. He called and drove up into Pasco County. Tim then told us that he got up in the morning, left around 8 or 9 in the morning before anybody was up, tried calling Karen on his way back to his apartment. He was calling her cell phone, and he was calling her work. Couldn't get a hold of her. And that wasn't like her to not show up to work.
Karen had some health issues. She occasionally, I guess, would have blackouts. And so he was very concerned about her.
So he decides to drive over to her house. When he gets there, he sees her car in the driveway, which was even more concerning to him because he knew, obviously, she hadn't gone to work. So at that point, he walks up to the front of the residence, and he states that the front door is slightly ajar. So he pushes the door open, walks inside her residence, and he sees her lying on the floor. He said he started to retch because of what he saw, and he was so upset. He backed out of the residence and called 911.
But the more detectives interrogate Tim, the more questions they have.
He said he didn't go near her body, even though the 911 dispatcher asked him to go check. He refused to go close to her body.
She was a loved one that he was concerned about, that he went over specifically thinking that she might have blacked out or something. You would expect him to go up to check her body.
His behavior raises a red flag for detectives, but nonetheless, Tim continues to cooperate with the investigation.
Tim consents to us taking fingernail swabbings and scrapings. We're taking a buccal swab for DNA. We're taking his clothing, and we're taking photographs of him.
But despite their suspicions, when detectives look into Tim's alibi, everything checks out.
Everything with Tim's friend, George, said happened. It seemed to confirm the story that Tim had initially told them.
Detectives then ask Tim if there's anyone he knows who would want to hurt Karen.
He tells us about a previous relationship that Karen was involved in with the subject named ROC. And he initially said, you spell it like rock. However, then he stated to us, no, it's kind of like a mythical spelling, it's ROC. He didn't indicate that he saw ROC on the wall. He just told us about this relationship with ROC, which he described as violent, and that he had been in trouble before for some domestic stuff with her.
There's a reason the word rock was written on the door. It's because she has a boyfriend named Rock, and that's exactly how you spell it. And I was like, really? Get out. At this point, I'm thinking to myself, Rock is possibly the one that murdered her.
Detectives have zeroed in on a prime suspect in Karen Pennell's murder, a violent ex-boyfriend named Rock.
Tim described Rock as a drug user. He didn't like the guy, didn't think there was anything good about him.
Anxious to help detectives find Karen's killer, Tim provides as much information as he can about her ex.
Tim further tells us that Rock was still calling Karen once in a while because he had a roll-top desk that was still at her residence. Tim felt that Rock would come by her once in a while when he would have something of his that was there and not get everything in order to have a reason to call her to come back again. I definitely kind of cued in on that, and now I know that we have to establish a timeline for Rock.
Rock is an obvious suspect. You have somebody who it's alleged and documented that there is a history of domestic violence here. We know that this is an estranged relationship, so it doesn't take much to make the link that perhaps he could have acted in an aggressive manner and killed Karen. Maybe there's some sort of motivation in terms of him wanting to rekindle the relationship, or maybe he wants something that he had given her back. Sometimes there's other sorts of feuds underlying these things as well.
Rock's alleged violent tendencies are an important clue for detectives in locating him.
We were able to find a report from our agency back in 2002 where there was a family trouble at Karen's residence there, where her and Rock had gotten into a fight, and he had left, and when he came back, she had locked the door and wouldn't let him in, and he was banging on the door. Karen was scared.
The police report helps detectives track Rock down. He's in Northport, Florida, a 90-minute drive from Oldsmar.
We were there to kind of catch him off guard, so we surprised Rock at his residence. He was a little standoffish with us, but we introduce ourselves to him, and we tell him we're investigating the death of Karen Pinnell.
Detectives proceed to question Rock about his relationship with his former girlfriend.
Rock described the relationship he had with Karen as kind of, not a really good one. He was over the relationship. He had his new girlfriend that he was living with now that I believe they might have been engaged. So he was happy with his life and where it was.
Detectives then confront Rock about the accusation that he had repeatedly been harassing Karen over furniture she had of his.
He's reaching out to Karen, trying to get this roll-top desk back. His explanation was that it wasn't a big deal and that he was done at that point.
When someone's confronted with evidence that suggests they may be at the crime scene or they may be guilty, it's very interesting to people involved to see how this suspect responds. Do they have a plausible explanation for this? Do they react in a defensive manner? These are all very important reactions and all mean different things.
And then detectives drop a bombshell on Rock.
He was really taken back when we told him that his name had been written in blood on the wall at our house. He was startled and shocked and kind of pissed as to who would try to frame me for the murder of somebody, of an ex-girlfriend. So that was very unnerving for him.
Sometimes killers want to be found, or at least they want sort of the notoriety that comes with being a killer. It's possible that a killer leaving a clue, like writing their name on the wall, might take some joy from watching police try to catch them. They might be toying with police.
Not satisfied with his claims of innocence, detectives ask Rock point blank whether he killed Karen.
He does tell us that, he has a criminal history, but he says, I had nothing to do with the murder of Karen. We were also aware of the fact that he did live at her place previously. And again, the fact that it's staged to look like there was a burglary. And Rock would be familiar with the area. He knew where the safety pin was on the sliding glass door. He knew about the bird bath, the phone box. It makes you wonder.
Detectives try to pin Rock down on where he was during the time they believe Karen was murdered.
So Rock was explaining to us his timeline on Friday about coming home from work around 6, 7 o'clock that night. They were up till about midnight or so, having some drinks at the house. And they both went to bed together, and they both woke up together around 9:30 Saturday morning. We were able to speak with his girlfriend, who he lived with, and she had a younger son. She said that he was with them on Friday and was there Saturday as well. So at this point, we know a couple things. We know that Rock is a controlling and dark and violent person. And maybe his girlfriend and her son are afraid of him. So, could there be a possible cover-up?
The question authorities always have to ask whenever a significant other or a partner alibis out the other half is, are they just doing this to protect them? Are they covering for them? Are they complicit in the scheme themselves? You can't just take a person at their word. It needs to be fact-checked.
Despite the fact that Rock's girlfriend was home, the timeline shows he still had the opportunity to murder Karen between 8:48 p.m. and 10:30 a.m. the next morning.
So now I'm immediately thinking, is he lying? And if he is, why is he lying? Is he lying because he was the last person to see her? Because he was the one that murdered her?
Detectives have their sights on Karen Pinnell's ex-boyfriend ROC as her possible killer. But they don't have any physical evidence to connect him to the crime, so they put his alibi to the test.
Initially, when we're having a conversation or interviewing somebody, you're just trying to really get their timeline. And then what you do is you go back to try to see if there's discrepancies in it.
When the police were conducting their investigation, they started to pull some of the information from cell phone towers.
Detectives are hoping ROC's cell phone activity will provide useful information, but what they discover is surprising.
They were able to confirm that ROC was at home with his family, and there was nothing that would indicate any telltale, or any clues that would indicate that he was not there. And his story is corroborated by other people. So he was eliminated as being a suspect.
The fact that in this case, the victim's sort of dying act seems to have been writing her killer's name in blood. This is one of those clues that you never get. And when it shows up in this case, police are obviously going all in on this lead. And the fact that it doesn't seem to be panning out, at some point you need to question, is this a misdirect? Is this name being offered as a red herring? Is he basically being framed?
To find her killer, detectives refocus their investigation by examining Karen's cell phone and text records.
So we see this text message, which is kind of like a loving text message, a flirtatious text message from somebody in there is built as like pilot. We're able to identify who that person is. We're able to track him down. He was a little bit hesitant at first to talk because he was married. When you have a subject that she has a casual romantic relationship with, and you learn that he's married, that obviously makes you think, could there be a possible motive there? Was there something going on and she was going to say something to his wife? And he knew that, so he wanted to get rid of that and eliminate that problem.
People will go to all kinds of lengths to keep their illicit trysts and affairs a secret, so that there's no cross-pollination between their two lives. But this inevitably complicates investigations when you realize that what seemed to be a straightforward life is actually a spider web with suspects all over the place. And whenever some kind of secret relationship is revealed, they're naturally going to be a strong person of interest, the same as the known intimate partner, the husband, the wife, the boyfriend, the girlfriend would be. In fact, it actually elevates them, given that they are sharing a mutual secret, and with that often comes an additional motive.
Detectives ask the pilot about his relationship with Karen.
He says that, yeah, he dated her from time to time, but it was a casual romantic relationship. And then he tells us that he was flying the day before Karen's murder, and we have a hotel receipt as well from him. So we were able to very quickly eliminate him as being a suspect based on flight records and based on hotel records of where he was, completely out of the country altogether.
Detectives still believe that Karen's personal life is the key to solving her murder. Searching for new leads, they interview her friend and coworker, Catherine.
So we learned from Catherine that Karen was in the process of trying to get more alimony from her ex-husband, Jeff. That's obviously something we need to look into, because there are times when people, get very upset if you're trying to take something from them, specifically money.
Money, they say, is the root of all evil. And sadly, a jilted ex-spouse, rather than part with their money, would rather actually kill the person who they once married. And to them, in their mind, that's an appropriate trade-off.
Detectives haul Jeff, Karen's ex-husband, down to the station for questioning.
Jeff described their marriage as a good marriage. However, he said there were occasions when she could be not so nice if she had been drinking. And that is probably the reason why their marriage ended.
Detectives asked Jeff about Karen's requests for more alimony.
He said he wasn't harboring any bad feelings towards her at all. He had indicated he had had contact with her, however, at this point was done with whatever was there and with her.
Detectives are not convinced that Jeff is being truthful, taking note of his overly comfortable demeanor with respect to the end of his marriage and his ex-wife's requests for more money.
Karen has moved on, is dating other people. Should he wish to have her back, so to speak, this can be a real problem. The whole idea that maybe Jeff was being asked for more financial support, plus the idea that as these things combine, you have increased provocations that lead you to feel more and more resentment over time, could also increase emotion and lead to potential violence.
Greed and money plus jealousy, that's a very dangerous concoction.
Detectives question Jeff about his whereabouts during the window of time that Karen was killed.
He said he was down actually in Miami, 4.5 hours away on a diving excursion with friends. All of that was able to be corroborated. Hotel receipts were able to be corroborated, receipts from the dive shop and so forth. Confirmed that he, in fact, was out of town. We were able to establish very strong, solid timeline and alibi for him to know that he wasn't the one responsible for her murder.
With Jeff ruled out as a suspect, the investigation into Karen Pennell's murder hits a wall.
When you have a small town like Oldsmar, you do have that dynamic when a violent crime occurs where people really are scared. They are not used to this. They don't understand how this could happen. It's all very confusing. So there is that extra pressure to try to not only solve the crime, but to put the community at ease, which is difficult to do when all you can say to the community is, I can't tell you anything because I don't have anything to tell you.
But detectives finally catch a break when the blood analysis results come in.
I remember there was blood spatter all over the wall, on the cabinets, on the door. And one of the questions being presented to me was, how long would it have taken for the spatter to dry before the letters ROC were written on the door? And my conclusion was that the spatter was already dry upon the time which ROC was written. And the reason I could confirm that is A, microscopically, there was no disruption to the spatter stains. They weren't wiped away, they weren't smeared, they weren't distorted. Well, then I had to figure out a time frame. So it was several minutes after spatter had been deposited that the word ROC was written. And she sustained severe injuries to major organs, like major functioning organs in her body that would have pretty significantly caused her to be incapacitated and unable to sustain life for several minutes. So you have to assume that an individual who's dying is able to write that word in such a perfect nature. None of that makes any sense. None of it.
There's no way, even had she been alive after the initial attack, one, she wouldn't have been in a condition to write. Two, she would have had to lay there and wait probably an hour or two before she decided to try to write down the wall.
She didn't write this. Somebody else wrote this. Somebody else intended to manipulate this crime scene and try to send all of us on some crazy whirlwind of an investigation, and it's not gonna happen.
Detectives confirm a key piece of forensic evidence in the murder of Karen Pennell. It wasn't Karen who wrote the name ROC on the wall.
So at that point, it was a good moment for us in our investigation because it narrows our focus down to people that are intimate with Karen that would know about this relationship we had with ROC.
Detectives catch another break when Karen's autopsy results come in.
We learned that her stomach was empty of any food, which was interesting because we knew there was pizza delivered to her residence, and we know there's 3 pieces missing. Well, she didn't eat them. So who ate them?
In the hope of finding answers, detectives track down the pizza delivery guy.
So we find the delivery driver and talk with him. and he very vividly remembers delivering the pizza to Karen's house. He described her as an attractive female that he delivered the pizza to. He had a bit of an accent, and she commented on his accent. So they were having this casual conversation in the front porch area of her residence, and he remembered a gentleman being there, standing in the background inside. And he said he thinks that he upset him because as they were having this conversation, maybe it was a little bit flirtatious, and he said this subject kept passing back and forth in the background, looking at him. He took it as if he was needed to stop having a conversation with her and leave. And that's how he described it to us. So that, to me, is a very big revelation in this investigation.
Detectives need to identify the mystery man who was with Karen on the night she was killed. They're hoping there could be fingerprints on the pizza box and direct forensics to go down this road in their analysis.
I'm looking for some type of indication of even a partial fingerprint.
While detectives wait for the fingerprint analysis, they uncover more details about the nature of Karen's relationship with Tim Permentor, her boyfriend at the time of her death.
During our investigation, we're going through our records. We see a report where a couple weeks prior, she had called 911 and hung up. So the deputy goes to her residence for a 911 hang-up call. And it's determined that Tim had come to her house. She called 911, and he left.
Detectives track down the responding officer, and what they learn next blows the case wide open.
The deputy did a criminal history check on Tim and saw that he was out on probation and he had done 12 years in state prison for attempted murder. So he took it upon himself, because it was a public record, and because she had called 911, he informed Karen of this and about his history and that it was for attempted murder.
It's clear that Tim was quite accomplished at leading a double life. He had convinced Karen to be with him, and yet he had this whole other past that she rightly would have been quite concerned about. I think she would have felt betrayed, and Karen may have confronted him about it, and he was upset about it.
So it was all pointing in this big, huge arrow straight at Tim.
Detectives dig deeper into Tim's background.
So we learned that Tim had been involved in an escort business in Gainesville area and the Tallahassee area. We learned that back in 1990, he was convicted for attempted first-degree murder and kidnapping, which involved an escort and involved him also trying to take out this competitor.
Detectives have Tim Permentor in their crosshairs and haul him back into the station for questioning.
So as we're talking with Tim, we asked if Karen knew about his prison stay, and he told us that he had disclosed that to her at the beginning of a relationship because he indicated she had to get over that. It took her a little bit of time to get over his past. But he told us Karen was okay with it because they stayed in a relationship and she stayed with him.
We know from the 911 call made about a week prior to her death that she realizes that she's been lied to by Tim this whole time. And the cops who attend on that evening tip her off to the fact that he's a known felon.
Detectives theorize that Tim Permentor is the murderer, but without physical evidence, they can't prove it.
A lot of pressure is put on us by ourselves because we want to bring closure to this. We want to, one, take a murderer off the street. Two, we want to get closure for the family. What's happened to their family member, their loved one, their friend has happened. We can't change that. But it's salt in the wound if you can't bring closure to it.
Here's a case where Tim is a guy who's been living a lie his whole life. He's dabbled in all sorts of crime, criminal versatility being a good marker of psychopathy in most cases. So you know you're not necessarily going to get a confession from him. He's not going to cooperate. It'll be one lie after another. So at that point, you really need to focus on what forensic science can tell you, because forensic science doesn't lie.
Detectives have zeroed in on Tim Permentor as the prime suspect in Karen Pennell's murder.
We have him go over his timeline again, and he regurgitates what he told us the first time.
Tim sticks to his story that he was with his friend George and George's girlfriend at her place in Pasco County on the night of the murder.
But when we really start pressing him, his demeanor changes. He's kind of just this blank look on his face, this stoic, almost dark, a little less open and closed off and short. So at that point in time, he told us he wanted a lawyer, and we placed him under arrest for the violation of probation because he was up in Pasco County, and we're able to get him held in the jail while we continued pushing forward.
While Tim is locked up, detectives receive the results from the fingerprint analysis on the pizza box, and the findings are explosive.
They were able to positively identify a fingerprint on the pizza box as belonging to Tim Permentor. That was huge at that point. Tim had told us he had left that location at 7:30. We know for a fact that he was there at least up until 8:48 p.m. that night. So there's a big problem with that. Specifically, he didn't mention that he was still there beyond 7:30. He said he was, at that time, playing video games with his roommate and then preparing to drive up to Pasco County, when in fact we know he was still at Karen's.
You can't change that. It is what it is. You can't say that you left at 7:30 and the pizza was delivered after 8:30 and your prints are on the box. The timestamp on that receipt directly contradicts the crux of your story. Forensically, time is telling us you were the last person to see her.
But detectives still need more evidence to verify their case. Tim's cell phone records are the last piece of the puzzle.
Once we received all the cell tower information, it again destroyed his timeline and his alibi. We know he was there when the pizza was delivered by his fingerprint and by the delivery guy at 8:48. And now we know he was there at about 9:30. When he says he's calling George from his apartment to head up to Pasco, he's calling George from Karen's house because the cell tower it's hitting on is directly north of her location. So we have him at her house at least up till 9:30, which was probably right after he murdered Karen, and he was trying to figure out what he's going to do and how he's going to handle this.
Detectives present Tim with the mountain of evidence they have against him, hoping it will compel him to confess.
She got pizza delivered shortly after 8:30. We know you were there probably 8:30, 8:35, up until around 9:30. And that's also the time frame in which she had died. I couldn't have been there that long. Is there any reason that there would be blood on your shirt from her?
I don't know how, but that blood is on my shirt. I didn't kill Karen. I wasn't there, but it doesn't matter. So just do me a favor and call my sister so she can come pick up my car, take me to county, because that's where I'm going right now anyway. Anyway, and then I saw the body, I should have run.
So who says that if they're innocent? Would you? No, I wouldn't. I would fight it the whole entire time. So he's somewhat giving up without admitting to it. But we've already started building our case against him, and we've attacked his timeline. His credibility is shot. We have him there based on the delivery of the pizza, and based on those statements that he makes, we know we have our guy. I promise you that.
Detectives are now able to piece together what happened during the final 24 hours of Karen's life.
Karen left work on Friday around 6, stopped at a grocery store around 6:30, and then went home. We know that Tim was over there at least once. He indicates 7 to 7:30. But we also know that he was back at his apartment at 8 when George left. The pizza was delivered at 8:48 to Karen's house, and we know from the pizza delivery guy that Tim was there because he saw him there and upset him. We also know that Tim was there because his fingerprint was on the pizza box. So that gives a catalyst as to what might have started this argument at their residence that night. and the relationship is not going the way he wants it. She's trying to get out of that relationship. You get this guy that delivers pizza. She starts having this, what he perceived as probably a flirtatious conversation, which pissed him off. And that was obvious from the delivery guy, could see that. And of course, at that point in time, he's a narcissist, he's controlling, and he's gonna decide whether it's done or not. And he realizes, she's getting rid of me, I can't have her. He doesn't want anybody else to, and he's pissed. So he goes into this fit of rage and stabbed her 15, 16 times to make sure that she was dead.
Tim then tries to frame Karen's ex-boyfriend, ROC, by writing his name in blood on the wall.
At 9:30, Tim calls George, and we know that he calls her from Karen's house. We know that around 10:40, he arrives up in Pasco County where George meets him at a gas station, and Tim then follows George to his girlfriend's house.
But why did Tim's friend George lie about an alibi for him?
Ultimately, we learned that he confessed to George that night. But George was scared. I think he's looking at a guy that's been in prison once for attempted murder and now just told him that he stabbed his girlfriend to death. He's scared of that guy, and he's scared that if he does say something, that he'll come after him, his girlfriend, or the kids.
Tim ticks a number of boxes in terms of criminal psychopath behavior. We see it in his previous exploits, we see it in his relationship, we see it with his attempts to frame ROC, and we see it most notably in that after brutally murdering his girlfriend, he gets the munchies and has to help himself to a pizza that's on the counter. It shows you just how cold and calculated he is.
On October 24, 2007, Tim Permentor is convicted of the first-degree murder of his girlfriend, Karen Pennell. He is sentenced to life without parole.
By grieving for Karen Pennell in this case, I allow myself to feel bad, and I allow myself to be angry, and I allow myself to be confused because none of it makes any sense. And at the end of the day, you murdered her because she broke up with you. There's never a good reason for murder, but that's one of the worst. I don't get it.
With all homicide cases, a good ending, I guess, is putting the person that's responsible in prison for it. But it doesn't change what happened. You can't bring their loved one back. This family lost Karen, their daughter, their little sister, you know, who was a good person that everybody loved her.
This guy was at the top of his game. He was successful, he had beautiful children and a wife.
It's very, very strange. We're definitely puzzled as to why he has just vanished.
A real-life murder mystery.
It's obvious that the alligators have eaten parts of the body.
A grisly murder with a slew of suspects.
Henry was living a double life. This automatically expands the suspect pool.
She was irate, thought maybe he was having an affair.
John does have an alarming history of violence. Maybe there's a sibling rivalry.
Henry had taken his idea and completely cut him out of the deal.
The truth will be revealed.
Who is this person? Is he a friend of Henry's? Is he a hookup? Or is he the killer?
Every day in North America, dozens of people are murdered. The key to solving the toughest of these homicides lies in the final 24 hours of the victim's life. To crack the case, Detectives must reconstruct that critical timeline. The minutes and hours containing evidence that can help unlock the mystery and catch the killer. Miami, Florida, a Latin American melting pot and the heart of the Cuban exile community, where many have come in search of the American dream.
Miami is a very diversified community. It's made up of several different cultures: Cuban, Venezuelan, Colombian, Peruvian, you name it, I think we have it down here. So it makes it unique, and it kind of gives it its own special DNA or footprint, if you will.
But Miami has a dark side, too.
We've seen crime trends come and go, just like every major metropolis city. And just like any major city, we have our share of narcotics, gambling, money laundering. Murders have always kind of been a steady here, because wherever you have the other two, you have murder that sometimes seems to follow it.
On one November morning, just before Thanksgiving, a Miami family's American dream turns into a nightmare.
On November 20th at 8:45 a.m., Isabel Diaz calls the police. She was extremely worried because her husband, Henry Diaz, had been missing since the night before, Friday, November the 19th. Isabel's very distraught. It's out of character for Henry just to go missing, especially for this amount of time.
You can only imagine how hard that would have been when her husband, who had never done anything like this before, was suddenly missing, and she was concerned.
The missing man is 35-year-old Henry Diaz, a local businessman.
Henry and Isabel were high school sweethearts, and they had 3 beautiful children. He was a very devoted husband and father, and she was very happy in that relationship.
Henry is a first-generation Cuban-American whose parents both migrated here from the island of Cuba, and they opened a grocery market. It was a well-established business in this neighborhood.
Heading up the investigation into Henry Diaz's disappearance is Sergeant Mike Brassey. He starts by questioning Isabel, who says that on the day of his disappearance, Henry woke up early as usual and was at work by 6:30 a.m.
The last time Isabel spoke to her husband, Henry, was at 10:03 p.m. on November 19th, that Friday night.
He told her that he was on his way to a business meeting to discuss an upcoming Christmas party.
And so he was supposed to meet with a band leader at a lounge where the thing would have been, and they were going to go over all the last details. Isabel first realized Henry was missing at sometime around midnight when she woke up and he wasn't in bed. She tried to reach him, she couldn't reach him. She went back to bed, and then when she woke up at 6:30 in the morning, he still wasn't there. She had expected him home because they were going on a cruise that day on the 20th. They had to be at the dock at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So she started calling the family and trying to figure out where he could be. At 8:45, she called the police.
To find Henry Diaz, investigators will need to reconstruct the 24 hours leading up to the businessman's disappearance.
This guy was at the top of his game. He was successful. He had beautiful children and a wife, a mother who he was very close with. He just wouldn't have run away.
It's very, very strange. We're definitely puzzled as to why he has just vanished.
To flesh out Henry's timeline, investigators start building a victim profile.
Isabel tells us that Henry is wearing a white shirt, jeans, dress shoes, and a nice watch that he typically wears when going to work. His license plate is a personalized license plate that has the words "Money Man" on the back of it. I relayed to her that I don't think that's the wisest thing to do. It immediately makes him a possible target. We also learned that Henry often carried large quantities of cash, so this became an alarming factor for us as well. So right away, the possibility exists in my mind that he could potentially have been or is the victim of a robbery.
Isabel tells them that Henry's car also has a GPS tracking system installed.
So on Saturday, November 20th, at about 6:15 p.m., Henry's vehicle is located in an apartment complex in Hialeah, Florida, and it had a different license plate on the vehicle.
The fact that there's a different set of plates on his car when it's found could have a number of explanations at first glance. One would be that when the plate gets run through the system, it's going to come back to a different car. It becomes then a misdirect. They start looking at this as a potential auto investigation, when in reality it's concealing something far more sinister.
Detectives discover that Henry's car was driven to the apartment complex early Saturday morning and parked around 4 a.m.
This particular part of Hialeah was known for certain types of crime, had car thefts, vehicle burglaries, some narcotics activity, so we found it odd that Henry's vehicle would be parked here.
Hoping to find Henry, investigators raced to Hialeah.
It appeared that somebody had parked the vehicle quite a distance away from the apartment complex and the apartment residences itself.
They noticed on the car that there was some paint transfer on the side of the car. They asked Isabel whether or not Henry had been in any accidents recently that he had mentioned, or had she ever seen that on the car. She indicated no. But what they can observe from the outside looking in is that there's blood on the car. That is not a good sign.
It starts to look like maybe perhaps there was a minor fender bender. Henry goes out of his vehicle to confront or speak with the other driver, and then some form of violent altercation occurs, and that's how maybe there's blood in the vehicle and at the scene. But where's Henry is the main question.
While processing the vehicle, we observe and we find large amounts of blood smear on the steering wheel area, blood on the front floorboard and passenger side front door. There was a small hole to the front interior passenger side door, so the paneling, and it was consistent with what appeared to be a bullet hole or a projectile hole, and that really was suspicious to us. We also find blood in the rear driver's side area as well as on the back seat, and we notice that both front floor mats are missing. It's obvious that somebody attempted to clean up the blood and they're potentially try to get rid of a crime scene.
We've got a car discovered under very suspicious circumstances. We know we're probably looking for a body. The question is it the owner, Henry's body, or has he actually committed a crime and then dumped the getaway vehicle?
Devoted family man Henry Diaz is missing, but his abandoned car has been found. It's covered in blood, and police are convinced that someone's been shot in it. Is the victim Henry or somebody else?
Given the amount of blood that we observe, there's no chance that anybody survived this struggle that occurred within the vehicle.
Using Henry's DNA obtained from a hairbrush they got from his wife Isabel, investigators test it against the blood sample found in the car.
We obtained the DNA results, and we do learn that, in fact, it is a match between the blood that is recovered within the vehicle and the DNA belonging to Henry. So at this point in the investigation, it's determined that we are actually investigating a homicide as opposed to a missing persons case.
Investigators now theorize that Henry was killed between 10:03 p.m. Friday, when he last spoke to his wife Isabel, and 4 a.m. Saturday, when his car was ditched in Hialeah.
When we are processing the fingerprints and the DNA that's collected from inside the vehicle, what we do is it's compared against a database which is maintained in our criminal list. And unfortunately, in our case, we don't receive any hits on the evidence comparisons that are submitted, and it's a dead end for us, and it's very frustrating.
Investigators talk to Isabel again to see if she knows of anyone who might have had a grudge against Henry.
All she could think of was maybe the brothers, because there's some jealousy there. Henry was obviously the most financially successful of the three of them.
When their father passed away, the brothers basically took over the operation of running the supermarket. But we know that Henry was the one at the forefront because he was more of the business savvy, administrative, more polished. The other brothers took care of most of the behind the scenes, manual labor, if you will, setting up schedules and dealing with deliveries. Henry's a partner with his brothers, but he has his own business as well on the side. He had made something more of a business portfolio besides just the supermarkets. And the feeling was that this had caused some sibling jealousy between Henry and his brothers, especially with John.
Sergeant Brassey digs deeper into the Diaz brothers' backgrounds and their reputations.
We learned that there had been some sort of altercation between Henry and his brother John. Actually escalated to the point where John grabbed Henry by the throat, as almost like to appear to grasp him in a choking manner. We also learned that John had previously been the focus of a homicide investigation. He was working in a store when somebody attempted to rob the store. He pulled a shotgun on them, and he got into an exchange with the subject. And ultimately, the would-be robber was shot and killed by John. So we know he is not afraid to use excessive force when put in that situation.
John does have an alarming history of violence. He's reported to have been involved in a shooting in the past. He also is reported to have had a difficult, sometimes challenging relationship with Henry to the extent that maybe there's a sibling rivalry. These are all indicators that make John a viable suspect. And so it's possible that he may have had motive to kill Henry.
With John in their sights, investigators interrogate him about his brother's murder.
John painted the picture that everything was copacetic and everything was kind of hunky-dory between the brothers. But we think it's very worthy and very strange that when we spoke to John, that he did not mention this fight he had with Henry. We don't feel like that we were told the whole truth.
Police asked John about his whereabouts the day Henry disappeared.
John tells us that he last saw Henry Friday afternoon, roughly around 4 p.m., when Henry responded just to kind of give him a list of things that needed to be attended to while he was on vacation.
John went home after work, and he was there until the next morning.
We looked into John's whereabouts and his alibi, and everything checked out, so we moved on.
With John ruled out as a suspect, investigators are hoping he can help fill in Henry's timeline, the day of his disappearance.
John tells us that the supposed meeting that was to take place between Henry, John, and the musician never took place. The musician responded to the grocery store at 8:15 and told the brothers basically that he hadn't received confirmation of the meeting, and so he had made other plans. So John, in turn, calls Henry at 8:15 p.m. and lets him know that the meeting for this Christmas party has been canceled.
But Isabel had previously told investigators that when she last spoke to Henry at 10:03 p.m. Friday, he was headed to a meeting about the Christmas party.
We found it odd that Henry did not tell Isabel that the meeting had been canceled, so we asked John if he was having an affair or something that was going on that Isabel wouldn't know about, and John's answer was, no way. That's not Henry, and he doesn't have any explanations to what happened.
The timeline gets clear when Henry's credit card records come in.
Henry's credit card was used at approximately 4:40 in the morning at a gas station in Hialeah, which was close to where the vehicle had been located. His credit card had been used not only at the gas station, but it was used at a supermarket at 4:23 p.m. on that afternoon, and then at 6:20 p.m. at a shoe store, all close in the same neighborhood in Hialeah. It was very clear to us that whoever used the credit card most likely could be the person or persons who dropped the vehicle in Hialeah. So we asked Isabel not to cancel the card simply because whoever was using it, we felt that it was going to be very likely that they would continue to use it, because the moment that the card was canceled while they were trying to complete a transaction, they would know that whoever was looking for Henry now knows that he's not using his credit card, that it's somebody else.
The police have the address of the gas station, so they go to the gas station and inquire whether or not there's any video or security footage of people making transactions. They get the footage and they see a picture of somebody using the credit card. That's a big break in the case. They take a snapshot of the video footage of the person using the credit card, and they take it to Isabel to see whether or not she recognizes the man. When the thing is shown to Isabel, she does not recognize the man, but she sees the wallet that he's holding, and that's a very unique wallet. It was handmade, and she says that's Henry's wallet.
Investigators are now focused on identifying the mystery man and uncovering how he could be connected to Henry's murder.
Something bad happened to Henry, but the main question, which is who did it and where's his body, still remain unanswered. The only thing we do know is because he had the wallet, there's a good chance that that's the guy who knows something about the disappearance of Henry Diaz. So they put out flyers into the community to see whether or not anybody has noticed this man.
The investigators' community outreach doesn't help them identify the mystery man on the security video, but it does lead them to their first real break in the case.
I get a call from the homicide detectives. There's been a body found in the Everglades. A fisherman found it and called in to Broward County Sheriff's Office.
The body was found drifting in a wildlife hotspot known as Alligator Alley.
It's obvious that the alligators have eaten parts of the body, but the man appears to be wearing jeans. His arms are missing, but he's wearing clothes consistent with what Isabel said Henry was wearing.
A human body in the Everglades, badly mangled, badly mutilated. The question at that point is, given the state of the body, is this Henry or is this some other victim?
Police have recovered a body in the Everglades, but it's been in the water for several days and has been mutilated by alligators, so they can't immediately confirm if it's Henry Diaz.
They're not able to visually identify that person because after he's been in the water that long, his face really doesn't have the characteristics that it would have had when he was alive. So they take Henry's dental records and they're compared to the victim's teeth. And it's a match. They confirm that it's Henry Diaz.
Detectives start working a theory on how Henry's murder likely unfolded.
Henry was shot perhaps in one vehicle, moved to another vehicle, and then his body was dumped. One wonders, what is the psychology of somebody who would do this? Perhaps they want the body to be exposed to the elements because this exposure could cause evidence linking a time frame or a time of death or a manner of death to be eroded. Is this something that's a hit and has been highly organized, or is moving to different vehicles and dumping the body something that somebody's doing in a disorganized manner and in an impulsive way just wants to get rid of any evidence?
Sergeant Brassey breaks the news of Henry's death to his family.
I think this is such a horrifying way to hear that your loved one was handled at the end of their life. But the one thing the police did tell them, though, however, was that Henry would have been dead instantly and didn't suffer.
When investigators ask who would want to kill Henry in such a brutal way, Isabel suggests they look at Henry's second business, Gentle Hands, a home health care company that he runs independently from his brothers.
Henry had bought Gentle Hands about 3 weeks before he was killed. I believe the sale took place on November 1st, and he was still working with the people that used to own it to learn the business, but basically he took over the business at that point.
When investigators interview Henry's employees at Gentle Hands, they uncover a surprising new lead.
We learned that there was some sort of disagreement or argument between Henry and Pedro Rodriguez. They were going to, at one point, combine efforts to buy this home health care business, and that they were going to venture on this business opportunity together. But we learned from the employees that Henry had actually cut Pedro Rodriguez out of the deal and that Pedro was a little upset about it because he stood to lose quite a bit of money. So, as we know in a lot of our investigations, money is often a strong motive for murder. And in this case, that's an immediate red flag for us as well.
Sergeant Brassey digs into Pedro's background and makes a shocking discovery.
We find out that his name had come up in some sort of Medicaid fraud investigation that was conducted by the FBI. And so we felt the need to speak with Pedro in person to see if there was any other suspicious interactions that he had with Henry.
Money may be a potential motive here. There's a business deal that Henry has reportedly done that had cut one of his ex-business partners out of some financial gain, or maybe he's stolen an idea from someone. Clearly, there's money that's involved. That always produces strong emotions, but there may be also other feelings of betrayal that run deeper than that as well, that could be felt by a business partner.
Police haul Pedro down to the station for questioning.
Initially, I noticed that he's a little suspicious as to why the police would want to interview him in the murder of Henry. It's concerning just simply because he knew that Henry hadn't been heard from. We asked him how he had heard this, and he said that an employee at Henry's business had called him and let him know.
Investigators push Pedro about his failed business deal with Henry.
Pedro told us that he had approached Henry and said, hey, listen, I don't have the money, but I do have the idea and the business concept as to how this could be a very lucrative business for both of us. Henry seemed interested, and he listened to his plan, to his sales pitch. He said he would get back with him, and he didn't hear from Henry for a while, and he had later learned that Henry had taken his idea and bought the business and completely cut him out of the deal. Pedro told us he was quite angry, he was hurt, he was offended.
Pedro had a motive to murder Henry, but when investigators pursue his alibi, they learn he was at work during the hours that Henry was killed. He's eliminated as a suspect.
The professional pressure that you feel, it's only natural with being a homicide investigator, but knowing that I'm a resident of the community, I live in Miami-Dade County, and the biggest question for us is, again, trying to piece together what could have happened. We still don't know where it happened and what part of Dade County. Could be in Henry's driveway. It could have been right outside of his business. We still don't know, and so we have a lot of unanswered questions that we're not able to provide closure, to provide answers to the family and or to the public.
Having hit another dead end in their investigation, detectives pull Henry's cell phone records, looking for any clues that could point to his killer.
At around 10, there's several calls made to the same number, and the last one being at 10 o'clock. And that call is answered. The phone number belongs to somebody named Jose.
Detectives track down Jose and summon him to the station to answer some questions.
Jose is contacted, and he tells them that he met Henry on a gay website. The fact that Henry would be looking at a gay website is kind of unusual, based on what the family and the wife and the friends are all telling the cops Henry is all about. Jose tells them that he and Henry had been together once before, and he said that Henry told him that he was gay, but he was married. Henry was trying that night to get together with Jose, and that was unsuccessful. The police, once they hear that Jose is gay and that Henry is interacting with him, they begin to think that Henry maybe has a life very different from what everybody in his family planted about his life with Isabel and the children.
Investigators do a deep dive into Henry's computer and discover prior to his death, he'd been secretly arranging hookups with more men.
So they have their forensic computer people examine the computer, and they find that he has been on many gay websites and spends a lot of time looking and searching through the websites. The idea that if somebody was secretly gay, they might be more likely to get in a situation that they couldn't get out of and maybe would get killed especially somebody who has a tag saying money man and is representing himself as a very successful, good-looking businessman.
Investigators turn to the Diaz family, hoping to learn more about Henry's online activities.
We speak with Isabel regarding what we've recently learned. So we ask her if she knows if Henry had ever been known to frequent gay websites online or anything that would lead her to be suspicious. So Isabel tells us that there's no way. He's a great father, he's a great husband, great brother. There is no way that this could possibly be true.
Henry's family now believe the cops were lying. They believe that this couldn't possibly be true. They just wouldn't accept it.
I think this would be very shocking, just because this would seem to come out of nowhere to a family who has, in all appearances, many different values than what this lifestyle they may think could indicate. For Henry, what is concerning to me is that there may be lots of pressure, both from a religious, family, and at a community level, not to disclose or to keep certain parts of yourself secret. But it's just also opening maybe some opportunities for offenders to be motivated to harm him in some way.
Things get complicated even further when we realize Henry was living a double life. Father and family man, and on the side was frequenting gay websites and hooking up with a variety of men. This automatically expands the suspect pool, and these are people who, because of Henry's second life and his not advertising who these people were, are gonna likely be very difficult to track down.
Armed with information that murder victim Henry Diaz had been living a secret life, detectives re-examine the surveillance video of the man seen using Henry's credit card.
The security footage from the gas station depicts an unidentified male there, and like a lot of security video, has no context. The question at that point is, who is this person? Is he a friend of Henry's? Is he a hookup? Or is he the killer?
Detectives are still unable to identify the mystery man through the video alone, but flyers soliciting his identity are still circulating in the community as the investigation continues.
We still don't receive any public information or even anonymous tips. We go back to the drawing board and let the case take us to the next direction, whichever it may be.
The big break in this investigation comes on November 30th at 12:55 in the morning. Hialeah police are called to a fight that's broken out between two gentlemen, and they go on the scene, and one of the Hialeah officers recognizes one of the people in the fight from the wanted poster that went out.
The man's name is Yosvani Fernandez.
A female by the name of Maria is also involved in this incident. Hialeah police bring both of them in for questioning and notify us.
When Sergeant Brassi looks into Yosvani's background, he learns he has a criminal past. Back in Cuba, he spent 10 years in prison for hijacking and theft before escaping and fleeing to Miami.
Anybody who's had run-ins with the law is somebody that you need to look at. It means if you're willing to violate rules and laws in the past, you may be willing to do so in the future. So he's certainly a viable suspect in my mind.
We also learned that Yosvani has a dark-colored four-door Mercedes register him. And even more coincidental, if you will, we locate a dark four-door Mercedes registered to Yosvani Fernandez in the same apartment complex as where we found Henry's vehicle. So we take Yosvani Fernandez's photo and we show it to the clerks at all the stores where the credit card was used that belonged to Henry, and they positively identify him as being the individual who made the purchases.
Having zeroed in on Yosvani as their prime suspect, Sergeant Brassi hauls him in for questioning.
Yosvani kept denying everything. He said he didn't know anything about it. He had nothing to do with anything, and he didn't know Henry. So he basically denied everything, and they got nowhere.
Sergeant Brassi confronts Yosvani with the surveillance footage of him using Henry's credit card.
When we asked him if he knew Henry or could even possibly be dating him, he became very irate and just frustrated and couldn't believe that we would ask him a question like that. And so we asked him why he would possibly be using Henry's credit card. He said that he found the wallet on the ground. He didn't know who it belonged to.
Not believing Yosvani's story, Sergeant Brassey questions him about his whereabouts on the night Henry was killed.
His alibi was that he was probably out with one of his girlfriends. He doesn't know which one, he can't remember.
Hoping to poke holes in Yosvani's alibi, Sergeant Brassey also interviews Yosvani's girlfriend, Maria.
When speaking with Maria, we asked her if she knew where Yosvani was on the night of November 19th, and she found it odd that we would ask her that.
But she responds to the question, and she says she was working. She works at, I think, a bar or something like that. And Yosvani dropped her off at work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon and was supposed to come pick her up at the end of her shift. And then she received a call from Yosvani about 10:30 p.m. And then after that, shortly thereafter, Yosvani and another gentleman came to visit her. And they stayed for a couple minutes, and then they left.
Maria then tells Sergeant Brassey that when her shift ended, Yosvani wasn't there to pick her up.
She remembers very specifically calling Yosvani several times and that he would not answer the phone. Well into the late hours of Friday the 19th into the morning hours of the 20th. She was irate, thought maybe he was having an affair, confronted him, and then he called her back from another number not belonging to him.
He said that he would be there shortly, and she said, "Don't bother, I'm getting another ride." She went to a club with a friend. He then called her again and said he'd pick her up there and take her home, and that happened around 4:30 in the morning. When he took her home, they had a big fight. She went to bed. The next morning, he told her he would like to take her to breakfast.
Sergeant Brassey leans on Maria about Yosvani's whereabouts when he wasn't answering the phone. She swears she doesn't know anything else.
At that point, detectives showed a picture of Henry with his arms cut off by the alligators and went through the fact that he had a family and went through the whole story about what had happened to Henry.
Horrified by what she's just learned, Maria breaks down.
She then admitted that she had lied, and she tells them everything she knows.
Ultimately, the break in this case comes, as it often does, with a woman scorned, who was also being lied to and who, upon realizing this, has enough material knowledge to completely shake the case loose.
After several false starts, investigators finally have their prime suspect in the Henry Diaz murder, former felon Yosvani Fernandez. And as it turns out, his girlfriend Maria knows a lot.
So Maria finally tells us that Yosvani confessed to her because he was afraid, since she was alleging that he was having an affair with another woman.
Maria said basically Yosvani told her he had robbed somebody, he had killed the person, they had dumped the body in a place where alligators would chew up the body. Homicide detectives right away are able to now go through each piece of evidence with her, and she's cooperating, and she's saying what Yosvani said and what he told her and stuff. So she becomes, of course, a very important witness in this case.
Maria reveals that Yosvani wasn't working alone and that the phone he called her from the night of Henry's murder belonged to his accomplice.
We subsequently found out through his phone records the phone belonged to an individual named Michael. Once we know where he lives and his whereabouts, we go and we meet with him and we bring him into the office.
Investigators interrogate Michael about his role in Henry's murder.
We let him know, first and foremost, that Yosvani has told us everything, just to try to get as much information as we can from him as well.
Michael talks, but he's selective when it comes down to the details.
Michael said he came here from Cuba in 2004, January. He met up with Yosvani. Yosvani didn't have any money and needed a loan, and he lent him $500. He expected Yosvani was going to pay him back, and he still hadn't been paid back.
Michael reveals that he was working with Yosvani just to get his money back.
It could be that they knew Henry. They knew he was a businessman. He had a personal plate that said money man. Maybe he was deliberately targeted because they wanted to extort him for further money by threatening to reveal his sexuality. In some ways, it feels unsatisfying because we're left with more questions than answers. And the biggest one that's the most unsatisfying to me is that it was only over a small sum of money. I want to know why somebody would resort to violence. Why would somebody kill Henry in this way? I think you can safely say this is a bias-motivated homicide.
Michael and Yosvani aren't revealing much, but their cell phones might.
Because of the cell towers, we know that Michael's phone is being tracked, leaving the crime scene to where Henry's body was dumped. And it's pinging, which means that it's alerting on these various cell towers, leading both out to where Henry's body was dumped and subsequently located, and it's leading all the way back in to where we eventually find the vehicle parked in the apartment complex.
Believing Michael is the weak link, police confront him with these findings.
It's always key if you've got two or more suspects and you're going to play them off each other to identify the weak link, the one who will acquiesce, who will cave the most quickly, who can be flipped, as we say. Often, it comes down to someone who has the most to lose. And that can be carefully worked by the authorities in order to convince this person one way or another to cooperate.
I was with my back facing him when I suddenly hear him say, no, I cannot leave him here because then he's going to accuse me or denounce me to police.
So when you open the door,
And so I opened the door to get into the car, that's when I heard the shot.
you turn around and saw Mr. Fernandez with a gun in his hand.
Usted se dio la vuelta y vio al señor Fernández con la pistola en la mano.
Sí.
When we speak with Michael and we present him with the evidence, he tells us exactly what happened simply because now he realizes the trouble that he's in.
With Michael's confession, police are now able to fill in the final 24 hours of Henry Diaz's life.
So after Henry's meeting is canceled, he decides he wants to hook up with somebody. So he first calls Jose, who it turns out wasn't available. And that's when Henry decides he's going to go to a local pickup spot instead.
At 10:03, Isabel and Henry speak on the phone for the last time.
Meanwhile, Yosvani suggested to Michael that he come and help him do a robbery. They would try to find somebody who was trying to hook up with a gay person, and they'd be too embarrassed to report it, and then Michael would have his money, and that would be the end of him paying the debt.
Yosvani and Michael had seen Henry at an adult bookstore, which was known to be frequented by gay men. They identified him by his vehicle, his license plate, Money Man, and he was wearing a wedding ring, so they figured he would be a good target, and they were going to rob him. They get into Henry's vehicle. Yosvani tells Henry that he's actually there to rob him, that he wants his money, that he wants his jewelry, and that he's going to take his car from him as well. Henry puts up a fight. Yosvani shoots Henry in the face, and now they're in sheer panic.
After placing Henry's body in the trunk, Yosvani and Michael take off with his car.
They drive out to the Everglades. Michael helps Yosvani take the body out of the trunk. They dump the body in the water, and then they take off and head back to Hialeah.
The men then leave the car in the parking lot of Maria's apartment building.
Michael then gets his car and then takes off, and that's the last he saw of Yosvani.
Then Yosvani goes on a spending spree, using Henry's credit card to buy groceries, gas, and shoes.
He has a wallet in his hand, he has money, he's paying with somebody else's credit card, but Yosvani does not give anything to Michael, according to what Michael says.
It seems cold-blooded simply because he could have just robbed him, taken his wallet, taken his watch, and just let him go on his way. He didn't have to shoot and kill him. But by Henry refusing to cooperate, he felt the need to kill him.
This case is very tragic because you have an upstanding member of society who has, a sexuality that he doesn't feel comfortable or doesn't want to reveal, who's been deliberately targeted for that. And for what purpose? I'd like to think that there was a deeper motivation here, but it may be that you have some killers who have features of garden variety psychopaths, and they're just killing over a small sum of money because of what they want in the moment.
Yosvani Fernandez is convicted of second-degree murder and armed robbery. He's sentenced to 25 years. Michael Rojas Perez is convicted of being an accessory after the fact and receives a sentence of 18 years.
We had so many items of evidence that gave us information, where somebody was at a certain time, where a vehicle was at a certain time. And the timelines in this case really helped us in terms of solving the case.
When you sit and put it together like a puzzle, it all matched up. I'm happy and proud of the work we put in as a team. We've invested a lot of time, time away from our own lives, our families, our children. And you know now that you can go and sit in front of a family and give them closure.
What I remember most about this case is that this was a man who had 3 young children and a wife, and the circumstances with him going on the cruise and not showing up, and then them not finding his body for so many days, it was just really tragic, really tragic.